Newstalk Sports 94.9 WSJM. Dave Wolf, along with Bret Witkowski, wrapping things up from CW Post Field in Battle Creek and getting ready to rappel down the side of the stadium because it's $8 billion steps to go down.
That's always easier to drop and roll than to go up.
St. Joe coming in with a 37-18 win over Battle Creek Central. You talked about it with the post-game show with Joel. St. Joe did enough on defense in the second half to quell the uprising from Battle Creek Central that was started in that late in the first half, that last possession in the first half, which should have been at halftime. It should not have been attempted to play. But St. Joe sacked the quarterback as time ran out. Battle Creek Central, the referees put 2 seconds back on the clock, gave Battle Creek Central a chance. They scored a touchdown, momentum completely to Battle Creek Central into the half. They get the ball back to start the second half. One of those 2-for-1s, but St. Joe stepped up, stopped that, and did what they needed to do.
You know, I thought St. Joe's defense in the second half probably played their best defense all season against the quality opponent.
Yeah.
Nothing against other opponents, but where they played well and were not doing having a great season. Battle Creek's a good team.
Yes.
They got good numbers. They got a great offensive line. They've got some skill players. This team could be a little bit tougher next year. But for the Bears, I thought that was important for them to stop them on that because, it was back-to-back possessions for Battle Creek Central. They could have had back-to-back touchdowns. And the one they scored with 2 seconds was not necessarily bad defense. No. That was just a great catch by the wide out there for Battle Creek Central. But I liked what I saw from the St. Joe defense in that second half. They had a lot of adversity. St. Joe had a face mask and unfortunately conduct from the sideline and 30 yards. And St. Joe still was able to slow them down. It got down to 22-18.
Yeah.
And, sometimes, and we had talked about this during the game. Every year, if you coach long enough, you have some teams that you coach and they start great, but they don't necessarily finish. Then you have teams that start slow. And as a coach, you're like, okay, what am I missing here to do it? And we talked about this with Coach Pratt. It's no knock on this Bear team. At times, they just don't put their opponents away.
And I think with St. Joe in the second half here, they could have folded up shop and they could have collapsed in on themselves.
They could have.
But,
they handled adversity.
They found out how to handle adversity today, whether it was the coaching staff, whether it was seniors on the sidelines making senior speeches or something like that. But they got their teammates to play the way they needed to the rest of the second half and came away with the win tonight.
Well, and I think the other part that's important, St. Joe on defense's side has some injuries.
Yes.
Pitcher is out with a knee injury. Huber got out. Schramm, who is probably started, I think he was listed number 2, but probably started the season at third on that. He's playing out there.
And he was excelling at it.
It did well, and that's the important part of what I like about football. It's next man up. Don't think you're not going to play because things happen. And next man up. Now all of a sudden, coaches got real film on him in quality games. It just makes the team better. But, Battle Creek Central, it's a tough place to play. The turf, I think, kind of messes with you a little bit. It's hard to follow the ball.
Oh, yeah. I mean, trying to spot the ball from up here and I'm going to show you. These are tinted windows here at CW Post Field.
Is that what they are?
They're tinted windows. But the windows are tinted here at CW Post Field. So it's one thing, dealing with a dark blue turf. Yep. And normally, Battle Creek Central wears all dark blue at home.
Yeah.
So
thankfully, they had white pants.
Yeah, they had the white pants tonight, but things were a little bit different tonight. But this is a rough place to play. I mean, this is
tough place.
This is probably one of the oldest stadiums in the state,
and one of the biggest too on the home side. And but what I liked is St. Joe's able to run the ball. I thought Malone had a really good job running the ball. LeClaire is efficient at the quarterback position. Dixon is only a sophomore. I mean, look at St. Joe's backfield. There's no seniors.
Yeah.
You got sophomore, junior. Even the guys on the sideline who get times usually to touch the ball are underclassmen. And, but credit the offensive line. I mean, again, second most rushing yards in the history of the program. Program that's been around 110 seasons. Mm-hmm. And it starts with the line.
Yeah.
And those guys are out there busting their tail. The one thing we will not do is we will not announce who's getting a penalty or a holding call, even though they do it now with the PA. Why? Because that's the only time they announce it. So we're going to announce when they do good. The bad happens here or there, and that's just part of the ball game. But, you got to credit that offense line. Another thing that St. Joe tied tonight, Dave, is most consecutive winning seasons in a row in the 110-year history of the Bears. This gives them 11 winning seasons in a row.
St. Joe coming out with the 37-18 win tonight against Battle Creek Central. You think Central? Now the big Central is up next week.
Correct.
St. Joe and Portage Central. It technically is for the SMAC West title because
It is.
there is a three-way. If St. Joe could win, that could be a three-way tie
Yep.
for first place. Also depending on Portage Northern and Lakeshore, but it could be a three-way tie for the SMAC West next week if St. Joe can't pull the upset.
Out of 5 teams.
Out of 5 teams.
And here's the thing: St. Joe upsets Portage Central. They'll host the first round playoff game. They'll get so many power points. Didn't help tonight that Edwardsburg got upset. And this is not a knock on Portage Central. But if you look at their schedule, they've only had 2 teams with a winning record. That is Portage Northern and Kalamazoo Central.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody else is 2-5 going into tonight, 0-7. 2 teams 0-7.
Mm-hmm.
And again, anytime you only give up 10 points the entire season, you got something going good.
Yes.
But I think St. Joe can compete with Portage Central. I think the offensive line is going to do good. I think the key will be, and I haven't watched film, does Portage Central blitz a lot, and that causes some havocs. But, that'll be key. If St. Joe's defense, I thought Schmidt had the best game of his career. I thought he was flying all over. I thought there was like 2 of them out there at times. He timed those snaps well.
Yes.
Battle Creek Central never went on a 2 count. So if they're not going to go on a 2 count, anticipate it. And if they do, it kind of bites you. But they never did. So he got in that backfield. Isaac Cotty is, I think, 9 tackles away from setting the school record. That's
First season,
which has been around since 1979. I thought the defensive line for St. Joe did really well. I thought Tony had a really nice job out there. I think he had 7 or 8 tackles on the night. And that's what it's going to take. If they beat Portage Central, it probably won't be 7-6. It'll probably be 35-28 or something like that.
Who knows? Maybe we can get a rainstorm. We can win it 2-0 like you did when you were in high school.
Yeah, 1985. Mm-hmm. We only got the ball past the 50-yard line one time. Were you at that game? Or was it so bad of weather? See, I got you all choked up over it. 1985, we played Portage Central. We won 2-0 in a rainstorm at Dickinson Stadium, and we scored because on a punt, their snapper snapped it through the goalpost. It got caught up in the wind and blew it over the goalpost. And that's how we only crossed 50-yard line once. They never did.
That's how St. Joe won in '85, but
2-0, the lowest win ever in the history of the state of Michigan.
So what will it take next week for St. Joe to come away with a win next week?
Well, number 1, turnovers. Can't have it. We had a few too many here tonight. Number 2 is going to be penalties. You can't self-destruct and you can't give yards to the other team. And then I think on the last part, Dave, is somehow we got to create some turnovers. And I think when you do that, you give a bump to your offense. And then the last thing for me is kind of figure out where we're at on kickoff team. I think we give up too many yards at times, and we give the other team pretty good field positions, maybe a little too often.
St. Joe, the 37-18 win over Battle Creek Central. For Joel, Brett, I'm Dave.
And Mike.
And we'll be on the air at 6:30 next week at Dickinson Stadium as St. Joe takes on Portage Central. This is Dave Wolf, WSJM Sports.
Cool. I'm going to use the restroom.